Here is the person who runs the John McCain Institute. It's not some Republican. It's Dr. Evelyn Farkas. There you see her in all her glory. She's the executive director, and she served from 2012 to 2015 as Deputy Assistant of Defense for Russia, Ukraine, and Eurasia for President Obama, also covering the Balkans and conventional arms control. From 2010 to 2012, she was the senior advisor to the Supreme Allied Commander in Europe. All right, so that's her. From 2001 to 2008, she served as a professional staff member of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Now, no one mentions this because I guess it's impolite, but she ran for Congress in New York in 2020 and lost by a gigantic margin to Mondaire Jones, and her consolation prize was she got to run the McCain Institute. But it shows you how this pro-war ideology is completely bipartisan in Washington, which is why the establishment wings of the Democratic and Republican Party are equally supportive of Biden's war policy in Ukraine, even as public opinion turns against it. Now, who funds this John McCain Institute, you might wonder? Oh, well, we have the donors for you. They're right on the site. Northrop Grumman Corporation, whose business is selling arms, so they probably like John McCain and the war in Ukraine quite a bit and understand why they're funding the John McCain Institute. You know who else is Raytheon Corporation? That was the arms dealer that Lloyd Austin was on the board of before being named Defense Secretary. Oh, and there you have the Open Society Foundation. That's George Soros's group. Also, the Royal Embassy of Saudi Arabia. They also fund the John McCain Institute. And then George Soros himself, the chairman of the Soros Fund Management. It's really amazing. These are two separate stories. The story on the Washington Post crusading for censorship of opponents to the Ukraine war, based on this disinformation fraud funded by Pierre Omidyar and the EU, and the John McCain Institute, which is designed to preserve bipartisan consensus about pro-war propaganda that was embodied by John McCain. And in here you see the utter myth of the idea that the Democrats and Republicans are so radically disparate, they can't agree on anything, they're constantly at each other's throats. The reality is they agree, certainly on foreign policy, on virtually everything. And that's one of the reasons Donald Trump is considered such a threat, such an outlier. But we just got done hearing about Russian propaganda and Russian disinformation, and now you see that this group that the Washington Post loves, on whom they rely to disseminate pro-war agitprop, is funded by Raytheon and Northrop Grumman and this George Soros Foundation and the Royal Embassy of Saudi Arabia. So there may be a lot of Russian propaganda, but there's a lot of pro-war propaganda emanating from Washington. It's almost always entirely funded by the same tiny group of people who are not your friends. And they are increasingly relying not even on persuasion about their propaganda any longer, but increasingly censorship of dissent from their views, because they know, as this article suggested, that these views are falling out of favor. And their only recourse is to do what all people in power do when they start feeling power slipping away. Banning free speech, controlling which propaganda can and can't be heard, and squeezing the most fundamental rights until they're suffocated and dead because they feel so threatened by them. And this is the network, the framework that is being used to facilitate that. Thanks for watching this clip from System Update, our live show that airs every Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Rumble. You can catch the full nightly shows live or view the backlog of episodes for free on our Rumble page. You can also find full episodes the morning after they air across all major podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Apple. All the information you need is linked below. We hope to see you there.